in the week leading up to the NFC Championship game, George Kittle said, when you look on paper, you say, yeah, you should be able to match physicality and things like that. Then you go on the field Sundays in the film, and after the game, we'll show you exactly what you're asking. But I know we're going to come out and be violent and physical. I'm expecting them to be the same. We'll see. Then he broke into a huge grin. He also said, we'll see on Sunday, won't we? I mean, they've got 6 first-round picks on the D-line. They have physical guys in the secondary, physical guys at linebacker. Whatever you see on paper, sure. So then Darius Slay, who has a podcast / YouTube on the Volume, you sent me the clip today, said basically that the Eagles took notice of those quotes. Like he wasn't pissed about it. I didn't think he was like shit talking, but he just said matter-of-factly the stuff that Kittle said, like we knew what it meant. He was saying we're good on paper, that we're not actually maybe as physical as some of the numbers might make you think. Did I summarize Slay's comments?
I think, yeah. And, I have no problem. In an individual sport, when you're an elite player, you can say whatever you want because you get to individually impact everything. And George Kittle, as an individual, he could have said, fuck these guys. They ain't going to do shit to me. And he'd be right. Like, he could handle himself. Just like Trent, Fred, Nick, Debo. They can say whatever they want in a vacuum because they can handle themselves. No different than Kelsey or, Fletcher Cox or Hassan Reddick, Darius Slay, Richard Sherman, whatever. But it is a team game. It's a team game. And there are guys specifically on Kittle's unit, the offense, who are at a major disadvantage against the Eagles' specific unit, the defensive line. Burford, a 4th-round rookie, gets subbed out throughout the game, throughout this entire season. That is not normal. And McGlinchey is an average tackle at best. I don't give a shit at what PFF says. In a passing situation where they know he's passing against an elite speed rusher, it is game on for the speed rusher. And obviously, I didn't envision Croft having to block someone. I put that more on Kyle. But still, if you put him in the game, I bet the Eagles are like, we're going after this guy. So when Kittle, who it's not a double middle finger to these guys, but he said it kind of knowing what he was saying to a team that does have a lot of talented players. And in the NFC Championship game, I put this out on Twitter, like, well, you really think that they're going to try harder? It's not about trying harder. Everyone tries hard. People try hard in preseason games. This is football. This isn't fucking Adam Silver's league. You try hard every snap for the most part, unless you're down 30 points. It's in high school, college, or the pros. It's about like during the week, this is one of those where what if their focus was just an extra 1%? The message of everything the defensive coordinator was just that extra percent. There's a reason the greatest coach in the history of football doesn't allow his players to say anything. And that's when they're playing shitty teams or in the Super Bowl. Because what do you get out of it? There is no positive, right? You're not going to like get over on them. There were 2 teams this week, guy, that talked a lot of shit. 2 teams. They both lost. Is that the reason they lost? Of course not. But think about this with the 49ers. George, who again can back it up. He's an elite player. Even in the clip, Slay's like, yeah, I think Kittle's one of the best tight ends in the league. He's a badass. He ain't talking about George or Debo or Trent. He knows that those guys are fine. It's about going after the mark. Like, fuck McGlinchey. Fuck Burford. And when we're saying that in the meeting, like those guys are the mark because they are the mark, it gets extra focus. And what happened? Both quarterbacks got KO'd. And you can say, oh, it's freak deal, MIDDLEKAUFF, because that's what some guys on Twitter, freak deal. That's literally what happened. Both quarterbacks.
What's the freak deal? The injury?
Yeah, like that he got taken out.
Oh.
One guy literally got KO'd and the other guy got destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, the question would just be, what do we gain out of this?
Whatever, it's not debatable that it was unnecessary. It's like, do you really think? I don't really think anything. The Eagles are literally telling you, they're literally telling you that this was a big deal, and not the team, in the defense. And the defense is going up against not just Debo, not just Ayuk, not just Trent. There are other guys on the team that aren't as good, and that are the Niners. What is the Niners' liability on the entire team? It's like, yeah, defensive back, the safety, speed, maybe, and like the right side of the offensive line. And if you tell me Croft is ever in blocking, that is an immediate red flag.
Yeah, look, it is impossible to quantify how a team uses that, right? But maybe they're a little more together. Like you said, are they really going to play a little harder? But here's what I know. Both teams said after the game or reacted after the game like it mattered to them, because it did. From what Slay said, there was also a quote from Brandon Graham, and he said it the same thing. He's like, we took umbrage to it.
The way George says it is a slight to them.
100%. But this is the simplest. Like, people might want to debate, like you said, like, John, how do you know they played harder? How about this? This to me is the only argument. How does it benefit? Do we benefit from it? You know the saying, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. If you're standing still, right? Like, look at it like food. Everything, if you're some people are really hypersensitive about what they put in their body. And they would argue like I'm not one of them. It's like everything you put in is either a positive or a negative. So if you put something in your body that you think is a net neutral, somebody else who's super psycho about it would be like, if it's not a positive, I'm not ingesting it. And that would be the basic argument. How does it help you win the game? That's what Belichick would say. How does this help us? Does this help us? Because you couldn't argue yes to that. Unless you're like, oh no, I'm going to get in their dome. They're going to do some dumb shit. They're going to get some penalties trying to prove that they're tough. Right? Like if you're like, okay, maybe you could build that theory and maybe I could even buy it. But by and large, you'd say, what is the point of Mike Hilton saying it's Burrowhead at Gayha Field? What is the point of that? Why? What do we gain? By the way, not only did he call it Burrowhead, Arrowhead, he then did he went on, I think because he said it, he was like CBS's pregame interview, like in the hallway, like interviewing Mike Hilton. I'm like, why are they interviewing Mike Hilton?
Oh my God, I didn't understand that. I wasn't like, I must have missed when
there's no way they're interviewing him if he's not the one that said that, right?
That makes sense. I was like, why are they talking to this guy?
There's no other reason. Like, he just was a story that week. So are you saying Kyle Shanahan should tell George Kittle, we don't, from here on out, no trash talk?
To me, there's a difference of trash talk of like, I don't think they can cover me. I don't think you have to be Belichick where you're never allowed to say anything, but he kind of put it on everyone else. He wrote checks that his whole team can't cash. Debo can, Trent can, Juszczyk can, McCaffrey can. Most of their guys can. Their entire defense can hang, but this is a result-oriented business. It's black and white. You win or you lose. Quarterbacks either make it through the game or they don't. Two of them got knocked out of the game. One literally got KO'd. The other guy got his arm for 6 months fucking ruined. Like, that happened. And both hits came from the right side of the line where the Niners were already at a disadvantage. So why ever? Like, it's unneeded. Not against the best team you're playing all season. Like, I think when you look back, you go, that was dumb. How's that even debatable? The Eagles, like, John, why do you think the Eagles are telling you this? They're the team that fucking ruined your two quarterbacks. We all witnessed it. It was the most embarrassing thing we've ever seen, what we had to watch, because they could not throw. Because both quarterbacks, Jerry Rice tweeted, in my 20 years of playing in the league, I've never seen this. Jerry Rice played till he was like 45 fucking years old. You've never seen this. No one has. It's unthinkable. It's unimaginable what we just witnessed. And they both came from the right side of the offensive line. So is it like, I'm not putting this on George Kittle. I'm not putting the loss on George Kittle. But you can say that was a dumb idea for him to say anything. It was unneeded. You could argue going into a championship game, a playoff game in general, any big game, what's the point?
Why help? It's not just about effort. It's about unification, right? You always hear guys talk about it. You play for one another. You play together. You say something critical, it can unify people. It's just, you just turn everybody's dial up a hair.
Well, I'd say this, George. Without anything being said, just everyone is super focused on each other. You guys have a disadvantage at a specific spot on your offense. Your ability to block the right side of their defensive line, technically the left side of their defensive line, your right side of the offensive line, especially if you're not around to help out those two guys. You are in trouble. And if I change you out for your backup, holy Jesus. We would say in general, if I say, Guy, there are going to be some rushes today in passing situations where Croft, McGlinchey, and Burford are going to be up against Reddick and Hargraves. You'd be like, That could lead to a disaster. It might be a fumble 6 or a sack. But worst case scenario is guys get hurt, right? Because they don't get touched. And that's what happened. Olay blocks. And McGlinchey was getting smoked. He's just not good enough. So you're just already at a disadvantage. You have a player in a key spot against one of the best players in the league who just isn't good enough. So you're already at a disadvantage. It's just when they're saying it, it's not debatable that it was unneeded and not smart to do. They're telling you, the team that they're telling you that. It's like, well, our quarterbacks got knocked out. Well, no fucking shit.
Defense gets credit when they knock your quarterback out. They get credit for that. They hit the guy and he got hurt. Joe Thomas and Mitchell Schwartz, both Shanahan guys, don't think that it's fair to criticize Kyle for putting Croft one-on-one with Hassan Reddick, because that's just, you have to just commit yourself to the offense. I texted Jeff Schwartz. I called Jeff Schwartz. He's like, nah, I don't buy that. Like, I think you can adjust for a given game. Then I texted somebody who I know initially through you, who was a NFL offensive coach. He agreed with Joe Thomas and Mitchell Schwartz that, like, yeah, you can't. But then he went on to tell me about all the times that they adjusted their blocking scheme for Khalil Mack. So, like, again, Joe Thomas and Mitchell Schwartz, big time. These guys know what the fuck they're talking about. I just can't accept an explanation that says, yes, putting Tyler Croft one-on-one with Hassan Reddick is an acceptable part of the game plan. On a seven-step drop play action play.
Well, here's the other thing. George is one of the heartbeats of the team. He's one of the best players, not just on the team, but in the league. Jason Kelce is the same thing for the Eagles. I watched his press conference, and of course, he's going to have his own thoughts about certain guys. Like, you think I can't block Kinlaw? But he's not going to talk like that. He even brought up, leading up to the week, like his press conference on Wednesday or Thursday, that last week, I guess one thing Brandon Graham does is kind of like pregame. He's like, the way he gets him psyched up is he'll just start screaming at the other team, and sometimes in warmups and stuff. And against the Giants, he's like, he's screaming at Dexter Lawrence. I'm like, Brandon, shut up, man. You don't have to deal with this guy. I do. And the one thing in football, I'd say football, basketball, it is like, you don't control everything. Some of your teammates, like,
right. It's not basketball where it's like, I talk shit to you and then I push somebody out of the way and I come guard you.
Yeah, it's not the way it works. Again, I'm not saying cut the guy. I'm not saying like he should be suspended. I'm just saying like it wasn't smart. And the Eagles literally told you how they feel about it. Like, I didn't make this up. The only reason it hit me is because they said it. I mean, they're the ones telling you. The Chiefs told you too. Now, the Chiefs thing, it was like very outspoken. It's not on that level, right? He wasn't calling him Burrowhead, but it wasn't subtle enough, It's just one thing, and one thing the Niners will do, because they got really good players. Bosa does this every once in a while too. But I would say the difference with Bosa is basically every guy on his defense can handle it. Turns out Kinlaw can't, but the other guy, like, they all can pick up for themselves. Like, the Niners have on offense a major liability in pass protection, right?
What did he say? 6 first-round picks on the D line. Is that what he said?
Yeah, I mean, they signed Sue in the middle of the season.
Yeah, but he wasn't talking about. He didn't single out the safeties. He didn't single out the linebackers. He singled out the position group that those guys were going to go.
Did you watch Kittle after the game?
Yeah.
When he talked about, like, I'm always going to hit someone in the face, it felt like he kind of knew, like, I talked some shit. I handled myself. It's like, George, it was never about you. Like, you're always going to be able to handle yourself until you're old and shot or whatever. Like, right now, in the peak of your powers, in the prime of your career, you're an elite top 50 player in the league. Like, yeah, no one's worried about you hitting guys in the face. Like, we all seen the clips. Other guys, they were hitting guys in the face and embarrassing, like, all over the internet, And literally, the worst case scenario, quarterbacks got injured because guys went untouched, right? That's the worst case possible in the sport. Guys going untouched, uninhibited to the quarterback, injuring
unabated, unmolested.